Sometimes life throws a curveball at us and we find ourselves wondering, what kind of sin did I commit? And why is this the outcome from my destiny? A quick reminder to hit the bell icon and subscribe to our channel before we get into the meat of the narrative. Let me introduce myself. My name is Han and I'm 35 years old. My wife's name is Lexa and she's 34 years old. We were together for 8 years before we got married, but we were only married for 7 years. When we first met, we were in our younger years and we were at an aquarium house. There I was engaged in the process of conducting research for a project. A documentary on the maritime environment has been filmed by a crew. The crew included Lexa as a member. Her role was that of an assistant. When I first saw her, my heart began to race and I couldn't help but wonder whether or not she was the one. It was the instantaneous attraction between them. I went on to her and had a conversation with her. I told her that I am a student of marine studies and that I could help them with more significant points that could help them make the documentary more versatile. She then proceeded to introduce me to the crew, and after I told them about my research, they became interested in it as well and ultimately decided to include it in their documentary. Because of this, I was able to spend more time with Lexa. After they had finished their work, we worked efficiently. I asked Lexa about eating dinner together that night, and she accepted my invitation, which marked the beginning of our existence as a couple. During our conversation, she mentioned that she was now pursuing a degree in mass communication with intention of working in the news industry and eventually becoming an anchor. Together, we enjoyed ourselves quite a bit. Since then, I was a student in university and she was a student at another university. We spent a lot of time being busy. However, once we were done with our university, we spent time together as much as we could manage. I valued her because I took pleasure in supporting the pursuit of her interests. Regardless, the passage of time led to me becoming a professor in university while we were still maintaining a healthy relationship with one another during those 7 years. But one time I walked in on her when she was making out with a guy in her apartment. I told her that everything is over and that she should look for someone else to spend time with her. However, she begged me to forgive her and said that man was merely a friend of her, despite the fact that he was trying to kiss me. I did not trust her at all until I confronted that guy and he confirmed what I already suspected about her. He claimed to have a crush on Lexa, but she treats him more like a friend than anything else. At that point in time, I trusted them and decided to forgive her. It's possible that she took advantage of me at time as well, but what should I do? I had feelings for her and she demonstrated me that she was loyal. And that was not her mistake. In any case, she was performing very well in her profession, and as a result, after a few months, she was offered a position as a reporter for a channel. During that time, not only were both of our professional lives going swimmingly, but we had also reached a point where neither of us needed to worry about money. After dating for 7 years, we finally made the commitment to get married. Even though I anticipated that our lives would be different, after we got married, I always tried to do something which made her happy. She was much more caring and loving to me after marriage. We had a smile on our face every day. Every weekend, we did things that were romantic for each other. Our sexual life was also amazing. If that gives you any indication, however, the issue did not arise until she started working in the new channel. After working as a senior anchor for a number of years, she just began working for a different channel. In the course of our usual routine, she always fills me in on the ongoings on in her workplace. But after that, she ceased communication with me in any way. And we don't had kids, I've no idea, but I do know that she made the choice not to have any children. After having reached my breaking point, I approached her with the idea of starting a family, but when I confronted her about it, she denied ever wanting children and maintained she had no intention of doing so. because she was working towards various objectives at the moment. I presented her with a myriad of counter-arguments. However, I was unable to give up trying and did not inquire of her any further about this issue. In point of fact, I've always secretly desired to start a family of my own. Anyhow, once a time, there was a party at my cousin's house, and we both were still very content in our marriage, which had been going strong for a good number of years. After what seemed like an aeon, finally everyone in the family was there to see us. We had a wonderful meal, and afterward I was chatting with my cousin, who mentioned that in the previous month she had been to a restaurant for a business dinner, during which she took a few pictures. She handed me her cell phone, which contained images of Lexa being kissed on the cheeks by a man as she was seated with her office colleagues on another table. It was an event at which everyone was having a good time and appreciating everything that they had, which is why I was frozen. I asked my cousin where she got those pictures. After I had told her to meet me outside and had immediately rushed outside to do so. After a while, she came outside. She repeated to me that she had attended a business conference the previous week, during which her attention was drawn to a corner table at which Lexa was conversing with a male companion, both of whom were seated at the corner table. After that, she took all of those photographs. While I was listening to all of this, I became quite enraged, and I was about to go into the home and ask her everything on the spot, but my cousin stopped me and told me to calm down, as it was not the appropriate time to do anything at that moment. I had already said what you are talking about, and I told her that that is an inappropriate moment to show me all of those photographs. She claimed that all she was worried about was me, and that was the reason she gave me these images to determine whether or not I was aware of her affair. I informed her that I had no idea she was capable of doing anything like that, and that I have never ever considered the possibility. I was quite distressed. The stress of hearing this information caused my blood pressure to rise. I asked her what I should do in the event that she were to stop me at the moment. Should I continue to watch her engage in all of this inappropriate behavior as she cheats on me? She offered me the following piece of advice to me. Because you were faithful to her for many years, and look what she had done to you. Catch her red-handed and just get your revenge from her. You, in exchange for any recompense, would cast her out of your life. Catch her red-handed and just get your revenge from her. You, in exchange of any recompense, would cast her out of your life. I responded by asking who else knew that she had been having an affair for who knows how many years. I promised that once I captured her, I would torment her beyond belief. You need only wait and watch. After that day, I made it a point to watch her every move, because I had a sneaking suspicion that she was having an affair with another man. On the other hand, I was beginning to find her to be quite irritating. Every time I saw her, my mind would flood with memories of the time we had spent together. Therefore, I engaged in a battle with her over little issues. I was keeping an eye on her day and night. One evening when we were having supper, she was unexpectedly interrupted by a beep on her call. She was aware of the message, which may have been a video. She finished her meal and then she entered into the room, where she made a phone call to someone. After her return, I asked her. She stated that her acquaintance had emailed her a new shocking story of her to broadcast the next day. But I knew that wasn't supposed to be funny. Her facial expressions were conveying an entirely different message. During the course of my surveillance on her, I made a note of the PIN passwords for her mobile phone. I reviewed everything on her mobile phone after she had fallen asleep, which I did by asking her phone. There was a message the previous time I recorded this for our love moments. The source of the video was an unknown number along with the video. That was the recording of Lexa getting beaten up by a boy during sex, and that man looked up like same as my cousin, showed it to me in the pictures. This completely blew my mind. Then I thought I need to perform my revenge on her, so I refrained from acting more. I erased the email from her account after sending the video attachment to my own email address. I was so angry that one night that I clipped her hairs. When she was getting ready for a very important meeting one morning, I torched her clothes and then left the house to get to my job before she found out about it. She was going through a lot of challenges, but I couldn't understand why she wasn't reacting to what was going on around her. In any case, I did not obtain evidence until quite a few days had passed. But there was this one time when I followed her to her workplace. I spotted her having a meeting with a guy in a restaurant, and once they finished their coffee, they left. That person seemed to have some sort of resemblance to the individual in those photographs that my cousin showed me. I decided to follow that man instead of following Lexa. I went to the workplace of that individual and inquired specifically about him. After making some inquiries with the security, it was discovered that he worked in the insurance industry and that he was just 27 years old at that time. He was perhaps 7 to 8 years younger than Lexa. The members of security personnel provided his name and number, which were noted down. It served a significant indicator to me. I had the impression that I had exposed both of them. I went to meet him. I pretended to be very intelligent in front of him. I was interested in the insurance products that his company was selling, so I questioned about him. After he detailed each and every policy that his company offered, I told him that my wife and I were interested in purchasing an insurance policy in order to provide a brighter future to our children. He responded with, "Yeah, that's right." He asked politely if I might bring my wife along, and I replied that it would be rather difficult for me to do this at the time. My wife kept a very full schedule. Therefore, I informed him that I will set up a meeting, but in order to complete the necessary paperwork, you will need to come to our location. This is the only option available to us. It was accepted. In addition, we settled on a time for the meeting. In addition to this, I told Lexa that I needed to put her in touch with someone else. Therefore, she ought to set aside some time for me. In addition, she concurred. I gave him a call and asked if he could visit us on Friday, and he said he would try his best. He said that it was fine and that he would go home. We were waiting for him to come over when he got to me, and Lexa was sitting on the sofa when he arrived. It was 11 o'clock and he arrived, and I showed him to the television lounge where Lexa was seated at the time. When she first saw him, Lexa was awestruck and became completely still. I presented her to him in a capacity of insurance agent. This young man was equally as surprised, to the point where he was unable to speak. In the fact that I was staring at both of them, I commented that it seemed as if they are familiar with one another. They denied it and maintained that this was the first time we had met. After that, I instructed them to keep a seat there. They prepared. I instructed him to provide us the necessary paperwork so that we could complete the required formalities. I noticed that he was sweating and had a terrified expression on his face, so I questioned him about water. He confirmed it and asked me to bring some water. When I got to the kitchen, I overheard them having casual conversation in which Lexa was very certainly asking him why he was there. After I had returned to him, I gave him some water, and then we continued to fill out the forms. Now that we had insurance, our children were covered. Following the completion of the paperwork, he insisted on leaving because he had a lot of work to do now. However, I stopped him and told him that I have something to show you before he could go. After he responded with an affirmative yes, I asked him if it would be alright if I turned on the television and displayed the video and the photographs that my cousin had taken. I laughed and remarked something to the effect that you mentioned the two of you had met the first time in life, but those films and photographs are showing me something completely different. Do either of you have anything to comment on? I gave Lexa a slap suddenly for what she had done earlier. In front of her, I shared her film to her channel colleague as well as her entire family members and told them that I believe this would be a wonderful method for them to remember whether or not they know this jerk. She immediately began condescending towards me and asked why I had done. I stated that I'd just recently been aware of this and that there was a fire that was raging in my heart that would be extinguished today. On the other hand, I forwarded the video to the insurance company and informed them that he was having sex with his customers out of every eyes and that there was now evidence that we were his company's insured members. That was the case in front of the documents. I went into my closet, got the divorce papers, and then hurled them in her direction with full force and instructed her to depart. After a period of 15 years, her affair came in front of me and now I made her life a living hell. On that day, I had an intense fear of dying. When she left, I was confronted with all of the memories of the time I had spent with her, but it was too late and it was also entirely her fault. I was unable to perform any action. I was able to overlook her dishonesty, but I couldn't stand it when she lied. That will haunt me for the rest of my life. Sometimes I find myself wondering why certain type of people don't have mercy in their hearts. I have not anticipated that by this point we would have children, but because of her acts, both her life and mine were ruined.